Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to our gathering here today. And um, we were just talking before I hit record. We're here with Julie Lefebure and a bunch of old friends. We all go back a ways in the online writing world. So it's really great to see you again, Julie. And we're excited to talk to you a little bit. She's been down this road of writing and publishing and marketing and kind of at a point where she's looking back and thinking about what she's learned. And I know that this will be a really beneficial thing for us, no matter where you are in your own writing journey and process. If you're at the beginning, middle, end, or in between,
Mhm.
it's always good to hear from people and what they've learned, and you can take those lessons with you as well. So thank you, Julie, for being here with us.
I am so glad to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know you or have not been familiar with you, you've been on the block a few times, but tell us a little bit about who you are, what you write about, where you live.
I am Julie Lefebure, and I live in Iowa, born, raised, still here. And I write to encourage women. That is where my heart is. And I wrote two books last year. Right Now Matters, and that helps women to live undistracted life, to embrace the abundant life Jesus came to give us, and a Bible study to go with that, the Right Now Matters Bible study.
Wow.
So, yeah, in a nutshell, I have a family and all of that, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's me.
Yeah, that's so great. And I love the title of your book, Right Now Matters. And yeah, I mean, what a timely message that you've put together and delivered for us in just a very distracted time.
Mhm. It is a distracted time for so many,
Yeah.
especially women. I feel that women are we're all over the place, it seems like these days. So,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I feel the pull all the time,
Mhm,
as I'm
mhm.
sure all of our listeners do. So tell us a little bit about these books, and you finished those last year. So you mentioned two books in 1 year, which is wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's actually two books in 3 months. I mean, it was
Oh my word.
one released in October, and the second, the Bible study, released in December. And the Bible study is actually bigger than the first book. More pages. A lot more thought process went into that because I wanted it to be questions that would take the book further, take the reader further than the book did.
Mhm.
And God just had that all designed. I couldn't have come up with that. And there was kind of a nice thing. I started doing kind of both at the same time, which helped because the days in the Bible study reflect back to chapters in the book. So that did help, but it was a lot. And but it really just it was just part of my life for so long that it was an easy thing. I don't want to say easy, but a simple thing to come up with because I was just living the message of trying to live this undistracted life. And how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, and I think it's great that you wrote the companion Bible study to help your readers dig in a little deeper to what you were saying. Was that your plan all along to do the Bible study? I mean, I know they didn't release the exact same time. So, was that something that you realized early on that you needed to be working on, parallel to the writing of the book?
Well, I took a Bible study writing course. It was just a little mini course. Uh, After I had started writing my book, and I don't know if that was wise or not, but I just felt like God was lining things up. And so I just took it, and then I had this thought that, gosh, maybe I should just write a Bible study to go with this book. And so it wasn't my original thought, but it came to me after I had started with that course that I took. It's just a little mini course, but it was really helpful. And so how I could combine some of the content in different ways, and that's how that came to be. But yeah, it was not the original plan.
Wow. Well, the
Yeah,
Lord, it wasn't God's plan, right? Just
it
kind of
was. It
wasn't
was.
revealed to you quite at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, And you self-published both of
I
these
did.
books. And so we
I
kind of
did.
we wanted to talk today just about what that process was like for you. What did you learn in that process? And was it your first time self-publishing?
It was my first time, and I had no idea what I was doing. I really had none. Uh, my family and I went on vacation. Was this? Yeah, this past year. It was a year ago in this coming February. No, sorry. It would have been 2023 in February. My family and we went on vacation, and I knew as soon as I got back from vacation, I would hit the ground running in March. And so with writing the book, because really I had some things on paper, but nothing, no concrete anything together. And I just knew that God was impressed. It was just one of those things. And you probably know what this is like when you know God is impressing something on your heart that you just know you have to do. And
Hmm.
if you don't do it, you're being disobedient. And that's what this oppression kind of felt like. But I knew it was a good thing. And so I really enjoyed that vacation. When I got back, I just hit the ground running with the book. And so I wrote the book March through August, got it to the editor in August, and then it released in October. But I kind of I did work with a just a friend of mine who had some experience in publishing, and she just kind of helped me back things up and say, okay, let's look at a timeline and how how feasible is this timeline? Because March through August was very quick. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if I could do that again. But I watched my grandson back then 1 day a week. And it was yeah, and so really I had one day of the week that was just out. I don't do anything when I have my grandsons. But so I knew I had to be dedicated with my time, and I had to let some things go. So all summer long last year, I wrote. I sat in this chair and I wrote, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to do. I just knew I had to write to get this book to get to the deadline by August. And so it was yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. That friend kind of helped me see a timeline and okay, what's the next thing I need to do and what's the next thing I need to do, in the cover design and the layout and the um the launching. It just but God provided for every single step. I can't think of any tangible example right now, but I can think of one. There was the editor that I wanted. I reached out to her in like April. And I asked her, do you have any openings and she said she had an opening for the time that that would have been, yeah, the beginning of August. She would have had one opening, and that was her only opening for the whole year.
Hmm.
I thought, okay, God, that I know this is you. And so just instances like that, just when the next step would come, I try not to look too far ahead. I just knew the next thing I had to do was this, and the next thing I had to do was this, in the timeline. And so I worked from that timeline until the launch day. And then after that, it was then the timeline for marketing and what do I need to do with that? And it was just, again, I just tried not to get too stressed, even though there was stress involved when things didn't go the way I thought they should. But I just really had to stay focused on, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? God, show me.
Yeah.
Does that answer your
Well,
question?
yeah. Well, I love that number one, you had a friend that you
Yeah.
could talk to that was kind of
Yeah.
guiding you and sort of it helps so much to talk those things through. I
Yeah.
think as writers, we're thinkers, we're probably processing a lot of those things internally, but to talk it through with somebody who kind of has a little bit more of an outsider view of what you're doing, that's super helpful. And then the fact too that you got real focused, which I think is interesting considering the topic of your book. You were just looking at the next thing in order to
Yeah.
to stay on your deadline. So
Yeah.
when you mentioned like that was a 5 month process, that's a very quick process.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you, and Amy asked this in the chat, did you set that deadline for yourself, or was that outside of you that you were trying to fit in with other things in your life and you felt like this is the time frame I have to give? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I knew I wanted to have it. I knew in my heart I wanted to have it done in 2023. Why? I don't know. I just knew I wanted to write a book. This was my goal in January, um, was to write a book that year. And so, but I didn't really act on it, of course, until I got back from our trip in March. And so that was a self-imposed deadline, but I knew once I kind of said, okay, I want to have it done in this year, then I started praying about it. God, if this is I should have prayed first, but I prayed and asked God, okay, if this is your will, I can't do this. This is nothing of me, God. And if you wanted me to do it, then I would do it. I would do whatever, whether it's December, whether it's, whatever. And October 17th was the day that just kept coming to my mind. Okay, God. So if you want me to do October 17th, my favorite number is 17, always has been, and I don't know why, but it is. And so that made sense to me. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to get this done by October 17th, then the first book, then God, please help me, show me what I need to do. And there's absolutely no way I could have done that. I mean, physically, I don't even know how. I look back now, I think, what did I do that in 5 months? I didn't. God did. And there's no way I could have done that without his help and his guidance. There is just absolutely no way I could have done it. So, all glory goes to him, but that kind of just then became the timeline that it was going to be done October 17th. And then the book, but see, I also was thinking through that, thinking, I probably don't want to launch during Thanksgiving time, and I probably don't want to launch during Christmas, because it's just a full time for many people. And so that October 17th just made sense to me, and I really believe that was a God-given date. So
Wow.
I guess I set the deadline, but God really impressed upon me the date of release date. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were able, with his help, to meet your deadline.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So in that process, what was the biggest challenge for you other than a very quick turnaround? Were there other challenges you faced?
Just the time, yeah, the timing. I felt rushed often, and I really had to say no to a lot of things because I love
Mm.
summer. I mean, and so instead of going and doing the things that I wanted to do for fun, I just knew I had to stay here and sit in this chair and write this book. So that was difficult for me. But the other thing I think that was challenging is releasing control.
Mm.
I like to be in control. And I guess God made me this independent person, and my parents taught me, how to be an independent person to take care of myself. And so I've always struggled with just opening my hands and allowing God to just fill them, and not being the one to strive to get things done, and allowing God to empty myself and say, okay, I'm not in control, God, you are. That was very hard for me because there was one there was about a week and a half where I wasn't I wasn't connecting with the cover designer well. And here I found out that she was living in another country. And so we could not, our emails would kind of it would take days for her to get back to me, realizing I didn't realize that she was out of the country. She was working remote, so I finally figured out, and it worked out fine. But during those few days, I was like, what is going on, God? I obviously, do I just need to take this into my own hands? Kind of having a conversation with God like that. And of course, I know better than that, but he just really taught me a lot that was probably the biggest blessing of writing this book is I completely had to rely on him. There was not one thing that I could do um, outside of his strength and outside of his will that would be any sort of fruitfulness. So that was a big challenge for me, and it grew my faith immensely. And I didn't expect that at all. Didn't expect
Yeah.
that at all.
Well, that's really cool. And I think what's interesting is to hear you talk about it is I think sometimes there's a perception that in self-publishing, you do control it all. And in some senses, that's true,
Mhm.
right? You
Right,
set the
right.
deadline, you picked the cover designer, you're making a lot of these choices independently, but there were so many factors outside of your control in that process, and that the Lord was sanctifying you through that process.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
that's true no matter what your publishing journey is.
yeah,
There's a dependence on Him to get it done.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know what people do, without him. I don't know what they do in this kind of instance without his guidance. I had thought of that often, like, what would I do without you, Lord? First of all, I probably wouldn't be writing a book without him, but there's no
Yeah.
way I could have finished it or done any part of it without his presence and his guidance.
Yeah, and I think there's so much good in that for us because it just moves the glory to Him, because we can look back
Yeah.
and just say, it's all you.
Yeah.
You used
Yeah.
me, but it's all for your glory. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
really
there's
good lesson to learn, isn't it?
yeah, and I look back at some of pieces of the book even today, and I did I really write that? No. I mean, I was like, I don't remember writing that. Even though, I know it was in there and I've read it over how many times, but still it's just like just the evidence of God's handprints, fingerprints are still all over it. And I still am amazed when I open the book. I'm like, God, you are so good. I don't remember writing this. I don't remember
Well,
reading this. It's
that
just it amazes me every single time. Yeah.
that's a sweet, sweet gift that
Mhm.
the Lord
Yeah.
provides.
Yeah.
Well, what has surprised you in this process, and what kind of response have you received from your books?
What surprised me? I probably would say that it was so well received. I just really didn't expect that. I don't even know why I didn't expect that. I didn't get my hopes up, I guess, I didn't wanna get my hopes up because I thought if this bombs and it doesn't do very well, then I'm gonna be okay with that. If I can just help one
Mm,
woman. But it was received really well. I didn't have a huge launch team. I did create a launch team, right, or invited people to be a launch on the launch team, and they really spread the word. And the first on launch day, we landed at Amazon at number 1 in the family and
mm,
Christian relationships category, and
that's wonderful.
I just again, I was in awe because I didn't really expect any of that, and so I that surprised me, and the response has been very, very good, but I knew that I couldn't just expect people just to, come knocking on my door for a book, but I do have to share. It was right around Christmas time last year, and that is a very good time to release a book. Let me just tell
Is
you, it was
it?
October or November because people were not buying just a copy for themselves. They were buying gifts for their friends and
Oh,
their family, and
yeah.
I didn't even think of that. So, instead of selling 1 book, to someone at a signing, they were buying 4 or 5 books. So that was kind of fun, but I did have around Christmas time, one man and his son came to the door, and my husband we live out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and my husband answered the door and we didn't know who he was, and he said, I need to talk to the author." And my husband was like, "Well, he's gonna s"
Uh-oh. Is
not
this a crazy
so
man?
yeah, we didn't know. And so he said so I came to the door and he said, "I need to buy your 2 books for my wife for Christmas." And I don't know where he came from. He lived in our little town, but I had never seen him before. Somehow he knew where we lived and, I sold 2 books out of my front door. But, that's not typical. So where was I going with that? I was saying that so I knew that I needed to get out there and spread the word. I knew it wasn't just gonna happen, people knocking on my door and people, just through social media, and so I it was just fun to hear the response of people and be able to sign people's books and to be able to pour into them and just share with them that, God has good plans for their lives and that they aren't to live distracted. And it was just it was just all around a great experience in that part of it, just having, being able to share with people and to share my heart and encourage them in that way through the book and, just all of that. It was
Yeah.
really a joyful thing, a surprising thing.
Well, it's funny that most authors say, "Well, I didn't expect anyone to bang down my door for a book," but in your case, that really did happen.
It
So
did happen, which I didn't expect.
that's fun.
Hmm. And it
Well,
hasn't happened since. So
hey, but you've got a story. That's
I
good.
do.
Um, so you're on the other side of all the writing, the editing, the cover design, the book launch, the marketing, the podcasting. I mean, you've gone through that whole process, and I know you're probably thinking about the next one in your own life, but as you think about what you've learned, what could you share with our audience in terms of like, what should you be thinking about if you're wanting to write a book and self-publish it?
Yeah. There's just lots of little pieces and little details that I guess I just learned along the way. First of all, I think before you even, maybe, I guess before you even decide if you want to do this, is this what God wants you to do? And because it'll just be a lot easier to do it with God guiding you than you on your own. And, if God is really impressed upon your heart, this is the flip side of this. If God is really impressed upon your heart to write a book about a subject that he's taking you through or that he's teaching you through or teaching you about, then by all means, I say go for it. Because if we don't, it gets to the point where are we missing a piece of obedience if we don't do what God asks us to do?
Yes.
And so I think that's, just seek God. If you're feeling that, just to seek him and to follow his lead in that. Um, there's I didn't do anything fancy in the beginning. I just started writing in, I think I just started writing in Word, or I might have done it in Google Sheets. And I
Google
just,
Docs, probably.
Google Docs, yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Google Docs. I just started writing. I didn't, and I kept repeating this phrase to myself that I had heard that the first draft doesn't have to be perfect. So I would write a chapter and then I would, just I wouldn't go back to edit it until I was all done, until I finished all the chapters. Then I went back to edit because my brain wanted to do both at the same time. And I had heard from someone, I don't remember who told me that, but said just write the first draft. And it's okay that it stinks at first because then you're going to go through and edit it. And so don't be afraid to just start writing. If God's called you to do it, just start writing. And you can voice text, especially in Google, you can do that. You can voice text with your phone. Just so there were days that I felt like I couldn't write well, but I was on the treadmill and I could speak it. And sometimes the speaking the words was some of the most, I think, powerful chapters in the book because I spoke them and that I didn't expect that. But then I could come back and edit it when it was editing time. So you can get really creative. I know I've heard of someone that wrote a book while they were on a walk. Every time they walked, they
Hmm.
wrote the book, but they were speaking it. So there's lots of different
I
ways to
don't know
do
how
that.
people do that, but that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
That that's next
yeah,
level.
yeah. It's just, you just speak, and that's really what a book is about. You're just speaking to someone only in written form. So,
Right.
um, anyway, I just say if God's pulling you to do it, not pulling, but impressing you to do it, then I say go for it. And uh, just take it step by step. You might need to, call a friend and say who's done this before, or call me and just say, okay, what are some really things I need to think about if I am going to do this self-publishing thing? Because that really helped me because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you touched on probably the most important thing is just covering that whole thing in prayer and
Mhm.
feeling the prompting of the Lord to do something. Because I think we can
Yeah,
just kind of bulldoze forward with
yeah,
our own ideas and agendas. But I love
yeah,
that you answered it that way and that you really felt like the Lord was impressing this upon your heart. And then you just feel like you have to get it out, right? It's just like
yeah.
time is of the essence because you want it to be fresh and
Yeah.
God had been teaching you through that. So that's
Yeah.
really great. Um, one thing I was thinking about as you were talking is, did you have an outline that you worked from? I know in the self-publishing, you don't necessarily have to go through the book proposal process, but did you do any of those exercises in terms of outlining chapters or getting a big idea for your whole book to help shape your writing as it took place?
I did. Actually, I did a book proposal for
Oh,
it.
good. Okay.
I did that in the fall prior. And this is an interesting part of my story. I'm really glad you brought this up because I kind of forgot about it. Uh, in July of 2022, I met with a acquisitions editor, and she really encouraged me to be the expert on distraction. That's how this all came to be. And I presented a proposal to her on this very subject. And she said, well, I just want you to become the expert. If I ever need to send someone to, if I've come across someone who needs help and distraction, overcoming that, I want to be able to know who to send that to you, and they'll be you. And I said, well, I would love that, but that was not my focus. And so I really thought she was going to take my book proposal. She took it, but she didn't. She said that someone in the book publishing company that she was in, someone was coming out with a similar focus in the spring. And so I sent my book proposal out to so many agents, to so many to publishing companies. I was, and by November I was tired of it. I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to do this. I guess,
Hmm.
God, maybe I heard you wrong. And so I messaged a friend, and she said, who says you have to go through a traditional publisher? And I said, I know, but that's what I feel like I need to do. And she said, well, pray about that. And so that's how I knew come January that I wanted to publish a book on my own. Because I thought, I don't need to wait for someone else to tell me. If God is really wanting me to put this book, I think he was protecting me. I think he was stopping all of that. Excuse me, because that wasn't the path he wanted for me, was to go down the traditional publishing route. I don't have any other reason as to why it didn't happen. Yet the self-publishing thing happened so fast. So I did have a book proposal all ready to go. And so my first three chapters were pretty much done because that was part of the book proposal. And I'm really glad I did that book proposal, and I'll do it again the next time around because so much material in that book proposal helped with like the cover formatting on the back, the back of the um this stuff, the cover, what do you
Oh,
call
the
that?
copy on the back
Yeah,
cover.
copy. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh my God, the words was not coming to me. The cover copy, the introduction. I mean, so much of that came from that book proposal. And so I really am thankful I had that. So, but then I did work from an outline. I took sticky notes and I put it up on my wall, and I just had chapter and then everything on a sticky note, single sticky notes for what I wanted in each chapter. And that was helpful to me. Then I transferred it. Then I realized I really need that in computer form. I needed that in front of me instead of on the wall. But the wall kind of helped me to realize, it helped me to see also the length of the paragraph, the chapters. I kind of wanted them to be near almost the same. And so based on the post-it notes, kind of helped me see, all right, this chapter needs a little more because there's not much in it. At least on the post-it note part. But that really helped me to see, okay, what's the next thing? What should the next chapter be? What should the next chapter be? What kind of thing. So the outline was key, I think, in helping me stay organized.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of good things. I love that the editor said she wanted you to become synonymous in people's minds with the being undistracted in your living. And I love that idea. I've talked about that a lot on the writer's block, is that you want to be known for the problems that
Yes.
you solve, right?
Yes.
When people think about living undistracted, you want them to think of Julie. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I think that's a really good thing for us as writers, as we're, whether your dream is a traditional or a self-published book deal, a book ever in your future, Or if you just want to serve people, think about ways in which you can become known for that problem that you're
Yeah.
solving. And you
Yeah.
were living that out.
Yeah.
And I think that that shows and it reflects in your work. And then I love
Yeah.
too that you had gone through that process because I've done it too. And oh my gosh, like I resisted it. I was afraid of it.
Hmm.
It made me feel very overwhelmed, but
Yes.
it's so clarifying, isn't it, to just kind of go through that pre-work of laying out your chapters and
Yeah.
figuring out how to weave your themes through. So it's such a
Yeah.
good work, no matter how you want to present your final product.
Yeah. And once you do it once, then you kind of have an kind of an outline to go. Okay, so now you can do it again. I mean, the hardest part is not knowing what you don't know
You
what you
don't
don't
know.
know.
Yeah.
But once you do it, then you're like, okay, next time, yeah, I have this outline already or this template that I can use for the next one. I just is something that you can reuse and do over again. And then another blessing came of that. I asked that acquisitions editor if she would be willing to endorse my book. And she said yes. And so she was one of my
Oh,
endorsers.
very good.
And I just really attributed to her, kind of guiding me, helping me see that, yeah, I can be the expert in this subject. Otherwise, I never would have thought of that. That never would have entered my mind at all.
Yeah. And one of the things about that term of being an expert is that you just need to know a little bit more than the people that you're teaching. Like I
Yes.
don't think it means you have to know absolutely every single fact and statistic and research study about distraction, right? You just need
Right.
to be one or two steps ahead of your
Yeah.
readers or your audience. I think that is a freeing thing for us
Yeah.
when we're trying to build a knowledge base.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your readers are going to help you become even more of an expert because they're going to be asking you questions that are going to bring you to like, oh yeah, this is part of it. It just increases your, I don't want to say expertise, but it does increase your expertise as people start asking you questions and seeing, wow, you do really know what you're talking about when really it's just you're living your own life. You're living the things that God is taking you through and you're
Yeah.
helping other people through it. Kind of like that verse of uh we go God comforts us so we can comfort others, even though, God takes us through things so we can help others when they go through the similar things. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you learn too about your readers in that process too,
Hmm.
as they ask you questions and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is what they're wondering or what they're
Yeah.
wrestling with," and you can refine your message that way in the
Yeah.
process too.
Yeah.
It's such a good process, isn't it? Like
It is.
I think it's so good for the writer as much as it
Hmm.
is for the
Hmm.
reader.
Yeah.
The writer gets the transformation first. So
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Well, what's the future looking like for you? What's next?
Well, I was telling Kara on the before we got on that, or before we started live, that I was really planning on writing my next book this summer, but God, he stopped me. I'd be sitting at my laptop and no words would come to me. I couldn't. And it was just so clear to me then. I'm like, I, I can't write this without you, God.
Mm,
The words weren't coming to me. And so he told me to rest this summer. And so I rested. And so now, but he sprinkled little things in every now and then. Maybe it was something in the sermon at church, or maybe something I've read that will be on this. I know what the next book will be. I know that what the subject is going to be. And so I'm getting these little snippets here and there. And I'm just waiting for him just to show me, yep, now's the time to start writing again, that I needed a break. Because it was a lot. I lived this and breathed it. And, for 24/7, it felt like for months, this message. Not that I'm doing away with that message of living distracted, but I'm just taking it one step further with the next book. So I don't know when that's going to publish. I haven't set a timeline yet because I haven't even started writing it. But I think that the first step will be that I'll do that book proposal again, that type of format, just to help me get my thoughts down and do some research behind the scenes and take it from there. So I'm excited to do it all over again. I really am.
that's so great. And I love
Yeah.
too that you needed the rest and that you took
Yeah.
it, even though I know that it's hard sometimes to stop and to pull
Yeah.
back, but
Yeah.
it's so necessary.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Karen said, what did your day-to-day writing practice look like as you were going through that process? I mean, you were crunch time for many months. So how did that,
Yeah.
and you said too, you had to say no to a lot of things, but what did an
Yeah.
average day look like for you?
Well, again, I was just watching my grandsons 1 day a week. Now I watch them 2 days a week. So that this will be a little bit different. But I also work a part-time job. And so I had to work around that. And I let my boss know that I am writing this book. And he's writing a book himself. So it was kind of fun that he was okay with that. Not that I would do it on work time, of course, but I work from home. And so I was able to do that. I would work remotely. So there would be days that my commitment was to get down in my office by 5 a.m. every day. And there would be many days that of course, I would not be ready, with makeup or anything, my hair done. But that would help me. And that's how I would begin my prayer time is offering that time to God right away in the morning. And then I would work until I hear my husband get up, and then he would leave by 6:30. And then I would do my exercising and things like that. And then I would get down my office usually by 8. And then I would either be working my job, or um, if I didn't have anything to do, again, it's just a part-time job. So I didn't have anything to do for work. I would be working on my book. And one lesson that I did learn is that I sat too long.
Mm.
I need to have breaks, and that would be sitting here sometimes for 3 hours at a time. And my hips would start to bother me, my back started to bother me, my shoulders started to bother me. And so I would take 15-minute breaks and walk outside. And that would also clear my mind. It helped me be a little more creative. But come November, when the whole book was done and everything, my husband and we were looking online, and I saw something came across my feed, and it was a walking pad. And so over for the thing, like the Black Friday deals, we found a walking pad for $150. It's like a mini trampoline. I don't know where that came from. A mini treadmill. And so that's what I do now when I write or do other things. That usually on every Zoom call, if I'm not really speaking a lot, I'm on the walking pad, because I know that that is not good for me to sit for hours. So if I can encourage you to break that up somehow, don't just sit at your desk for hours, because that is not good for us physically, or I don't think mentally either, or even emotionally. But anyway, I just wanted to put that
Yeah,
in, because you
that's
have
a
to sit in
good
the
tip.
seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I don't mind typing and walking at the same time. It's at a slower pace, of course, and actually I think helps me to be more creative as I'm walking and writing. So that's been a huge thing for me. But um, and then when my husband gets home he gets off work at 3. Sometimes he stays a little over. He gets home usually around 4:30, and I'm done for the day, because I spend my evenings with him. That is my thing. I just don't want to be working unless he's outside working, working in the garden or doing something, then I'll come back down and work, right, whatever needs to be done. But if he's home, I want to be home with him. And so that's just my non-negotiable. But that was really it. I would work some Saturdays, but again, if he's home, I want to be home with him and be with him. So
That's
I don't know if
great.
that's a long, drawn out answer, but
Yeah.
that was I just had to go with the flow and just do what worked for me. Yeah.
Well, I think that's so good. I love the mind body connection. Yes, I have a walking pad too, and you're talking about it makes me realize I need to pull it out from under the bed behind me more often. It does take a little coordination at first to get
Yes. Yep.
the hand going with the feet and all that, but
Yeah.
that's really good. And the boundaries that you set up around your routine and your relationships are good and healthy too. So well, what I want to give everyone on the call a chance to
Yeah.
unmute in a minute, but before then, could you give us a little preview of what you're going to talk to us about on Friday?
Yeah. So, anytime I think we go through an experience or go through something, I think it's wise to pause and reflect. And then I also think it's wise to share that with others of what we've what we've learned, what we would do different next time, what we would maybe try next time that you didn't do this time. And so I'm going to be sharing those kind of things of just really what I didn't expect, what I expected in writing and publishing and marketing a self-published book, and what I didn't expect, and how I believe God used it all to form this message on Friday about just it it's just he takes us through things and then he wants us to share them with other people. So I'm going to be sharing all of that, just the things like I said, the things I expected and the things I didn't expect. And I just pray it just blesses or encourages you to either take that the very next step in your writing journey, or to maybe stop and adjust and say, maybe I need to look at this a little different, whatever your step might be. But because we're all in different stages, and I want it you to be able to apply it to any stage that you're at, even if you're not thinking about writing or publishing a book. But I think it's just important that we just pause and think, okay, yeah, what didn't I expect? But how will I learn from this and share it with others? Because we can all do that in any of the experiences that God takes us through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we learn from others too. So it will be helpful for us to hear from you and what you've learned and maybe wished you'd done and wished you'd done
Yeah.
differently, and the things that you would repeat. I think those are
Yeah.
really, really good things. So,
Yeah.
well, at this time, I just want to give everyone a chance to unmute. If you can let us see your face. And if you have any questions for Julie about her book, her writing, her marketing, any of those things are on the table.
I have a question for you, Julie. You did
Yeah.
an amazing job of doing the kind of the self-promotion, which we've talked about a lot, about how that feels so icky. And I've tried to
Yeah.
change my mindset about it. Like, what would Billy Graham do if he was afraid to invite people to the stadiums, right? And so we kind of have to have that mentality about it. But it's even how other people receive it and perceive it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
to get over that.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to talk about that some on Friday, but you have some ideas in that area.
Um, yeah, God really changed my thinking on that. I think walking through the whole thing and just knowing that this was his and his, it was no longer mine. It was really his. And it's kind of, that just sounds so trite to say that, but it was, I think that's really changed my thinking of it, because it became his message that he wanted to get to other women through me. And so I all of a sudden I didn't have that fear anymore. Now, and I kind of forgot about it, Carrie, until you just asked me this question. That I used to be very fearful of that, and it used to feel really icky. And so, but I didn't, I guess after I released all of that, it was just, I knew that women needed this message, because if I was living it and I was distracted and I was missing important moments happening right in front of my eyes, then I knew other women were too. And so that just became my driving force, that, woman in front of me, you need this message. You need to know about this, because this is God trying to wake you up, saying your life is more important than the distractions that are pulling you away from it. So I think it's all I think God will give you, He will give you what you need when we release out all of that to Him. And those fears, of course, I firmly believe that the enemy will do anything he can to stop us from getting out the message that God wants us to share. And that is, I think, part of it. So, Carrie, you're not alone in feeling that. And yet we know that God is bigger than that. And he can, your message is worth sharing. And your message, women need to hear your message. Um, Maybe men too need to hear whatever the message is that God's put on your heart. They need to hear that. And don't be afraid to share it. It's easy for me to sit and say that, but I still sometimes, the next, right now, Batters Bible Study group sessions are coming out in October. I lead them throughout the year now. And when I put it out there today on social media, I'm like, are people sick of seeing this? And I'm like, nope, Nope, God, I know you've had me write this for a reason, that women need to know this message. So I'm going to get it out there. Does that help? I don't even know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. We just need to get over ourselves, really.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I put my message out there, and I silently hope people read it, and then I silently hope they don't, because I don't want to deal with the criticism. I'm just, yeah, I need to get
Yeah.
my own way.
Yeah. And the only way we can get out of our own way is with God's help. I mean,
Yeah,
really.
surrendering it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Well, and I think too, Julie, you touched on this earlier. It's like you've got to decrease so that he can increase. And I think that when you have a message to share, it's less about you as the
Yeah.
author and the writer anymore,
Yeah.
right? Like you're
Yeah.
in a kind of a place of um, you're dependent, right? You've seen
Yeah.
him work in and through you in spite of you.
Yes. In
And
spite of
therefore
me.
you just kind of feel like, oh, I just need to get out of his way, but I do need to still steward that
Yeah.
message well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's given, and you're the only one that can share that message. Sure, someone else could maybe be talking about distraction, but it's not going to be my message, because
Exactly.
God's taken me through a different experience. And so, yes, Carrie, your message needs to be shared. So keep sharing it. Mhm.
That's a great
Yeah,
question.
it was.
Julie, I really liked that. It was very inspirational to me to think that we just need to get out of the way of God's message. You know, that
Hmm.
it's when we're worrying about that, because I have too. I'm with you, Carrie. That really is
Yeah.
just me getting in the way, and um, he has work to do through me, and I'm supposed to be a conduit, not an obstacle.
Yeah,
So here's my
you're right.
question: when you so, like you said, you received more of an effect from the book than you expected, more of a reaction. You got more readers. You sold more copies than you expected. Then, when it started, the initial excitement started to die down. Did you take any steps to like really keep pushing it, or did you feel like, okay, that one's out. It's time. That bird has flown. Now it's time for me to look at my next book. What are your thoughts about looking back now?
Yeah, that's a great question, because really I just kind of went through this. I kept with the Bible study, that was a gift, because I'm going to continue to offer group sessions online and in person. So that piece, even though the book has been out for almost a year, people are still wanting to jump into this Bible study. And so I think I will continue leading those groups until God tells me not to. But that has been a surprise, that it's kind of kept the momentum going. Even though I took the summer off, I kind of feel like in the world's eyes, the momentum has died. But I'm starting another one up in October, and uh, hey, people are still excited about it. So that was encouraging to me. But I did have that moment of like, okay, well, this is over. Now what do I do?
Mm.
Because it's been a focus of mine for, over a year and a half now. But I I just know that, and every day, my prayer is every day. I thank God for the message of Right Now Matters, my book. This is just a prayer I say. Thank you, God, for the message of Right Now Matters. And just please get it into the hands of the women who need it, however that may look like. So I just continue to pray for it. I can continue to pray for the message, continue to pray that God will just put it in the hands of those who need it, and who don't need it. They don't, they don't need the book. But um, I just think that God has bigger plans for our message than we even think that he does. And so, every month I still look on the sales on Amazon, and I'm selling books every month. I'm not selling them. God's doing it. But the books are selling every month, and it's just, I don't track that, because that can just, that is not healthy for me to do that for my own sake. But I every now and then I'll look, and I'm like, okay, God, you're still selling books, and I still get a little bit of money from Amazon for it. And but that's not what it's about. So I don't know if I answered your question, Rosemary, but I just think that if it's a message that's on your heart, you're going to keep talking about it, because it's that important to you. So that's what I've continued to do. Yeah.
I think it's
Thank
great
you.
that you're continuing to pray for it. And I think that's again another key to God being glorified in your work.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
really that's good.
He's just so faithful. He's just so faithful. Yeah, he is.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Julie, for being here, for
Yeah.
answering our questions,
You're
for letting us
welcome.
pick your brain a little bit about what you've learned. And I'm really looking forward to your presentation on Friday. If anyone is hearing this and wants access to see and hear Julie's teaching, you can do so when you become a premium member in the Writer's Block. So that will be available on Friday and forever and ever afterwards in our community. So we're excited to learn more from you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Kara.
All right, have a blessed
Yeah.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.